Hello everyone. In the last lecture, we have seen how shifters and the guard bits are going to help to overcome the concept of the overflow and underflow. And the last solution to overcome the overflow and underflow is saturation logic. Now let us study how saturation logic helps in overcoming the concept of overflow and underflow. The term overflow occurs when the accumulator is not having the capacity to hold the result which is larger than the largest value it can hold. Let us consider an example with respect to the 4-bit example. 4-bit here we can store the value with respect to 8421 code. Now let us take an example of adding 7 and 4. 7 can be written as 0111 and 4 can be written as 0100. When we add this, we get 1011, that 11. This 11 is going to be fitted within the 4 bits. Now if I try to add in the next example, that is 8 plus 9, then I can write 8 as 1000 and 9 as 1001. Then I get there is a carry 1 followed by 3 zeros and 1. That means here the value is not according to 8421 code. The next code is 16, that is 168421 code. That means 16 and 1. 16 plus 1, that is equal to 17, which is the sum of 8 plus 9. If you add 8 plus 9, we are going to get 17. In this case, the value 17, the accumulated result is 17, that is not having the capacity to store within the 4 bits. In order to store this result, we require one more bit additional to the 4 bits. That means this accumulator is not having the capacity to store the larger value, that is larger than the largest positive value. In this case, the largest positive value was 1111. 1111 gives a decimal value of 15. 15 was the largest positive value. The value what we have got by adding 8 plus 9 is 17. That means any value which exceeds 15, that is from 16 onwards, will result in overflow scenario. That means here we have to limit the accumulator to the most positive value while considering the addition process, and similarly in case of underflow will be seen while handling the negative numbers. In this case, underflow occurs with respect to the accumulator which is having the capacity which is smaller than the smallest value which has been fixed. Okay. Now let us see the block diagram of the saturation logic, how it has been implemented in handling overflow and underflow conditions. This is the block diagram of how the saturation logic is implemented. Now let us try to understand how this block works in detecting the overflow and underflow condition. Here, as I said before, we have to fix the accumulator value with respect to the mux by fixing the least negative value and the most positive value. Least negative value while handling the negative number and most positive value while handling the positive numbers. And along with these two inputs, for an XOR gate, we are having two inputs. One is carry input to the MSB and Cout carry out of the MSB. Then these two inputs will be given to the XOR gate. The XOR gate output is 1, then it gives an indication that overflow or underflow has been occurred, and then we can load the value according to the accumulator. Okay. Now in this case, for this XOR gate, the carry in to the MSB will not be equal to the carry out of the MSB. C in should not be equal to C out. That is the condition. C in not equal to C out, then overflow or underflow will be occurred. Then what is the actual meaning of carry in is not equal to carry out of the MSB? Now let us consider for a I can write from B0 to B7. This is B6. Here also I can write B0 to B7. Now let us consider the first case with respect to meeting this condition, that is C in not equal to C out. Okay, that means when there is carry into MSB, condition says that there should be carry into MSB. That means there is a carry from B6 to B7. Simultaneously, there should not be any carry from B7. That means from MSB, there should not be carry. To the MSB, it should accept the carry. From B6 to B7, carry should be there. While from B7, there should not be any carry. In such a case, we can say that C in not equal to C out. C in carry into the MSB is there, but there is no carry out of the MSB. Then either of the one input is equal to 1, the other goes to 0. Then by the virtue of the XOR gate, we know that 1 0 or 0 1 gives the output equal to 1, other than 0 0 and 1 1 condition. Now let us try to understand the next case. That says there should not be carry into the MSB. There should not be carry from B6 to B7, but there should be carry from B7. Then this type of case, then in this case also we see that there is overflow or underflow. There is no carry from B6 to B7, but there is carry from B7. In this scenario also, overflow has occurred or underflow in case of negative values. When we see these two type of cases, then only we can say that the block has been detected the overflow or underflow. Okay. After knowing the block diagram of the saturation logic, and that leads to the detection of overflow and underflow, now let us try to understand what happens if you don't incorporate the saturation logic, or in other words, need for saturation logic in computation of DSP signals. See, with or without the guard bits, in the case of accumulator, we see there will be overflow. And this overflow will be going to lead to the result, that the computed result will lead to the incorrect answer. Incorrect answer. But we should take care that the computed incorrect answer is incorrect to a what extent? To a greater extent or to a lesser extent? If there is incorrectness in the result to a lesser extent, then it is okay. But even though the result is, first of all, the result is incorrect and the incorrectness is very large, then it is not acceptable. So in order to minimize the error which is computed, we have to take care you have to take a measure such that we are going to minimize the incorrectness of a result by adopting saturation logic. Now let us see how it works with an example. Let us consider I am having a calculator of a 2-digit calculator. I am having a 2-digit calculator with the 2-digit calculator. I can compute only taking 2 operands which are 2 digits, and with this 2-digit calculator, if I try to compute the addition of the values digit, the first 2-digit example is 50, the second is 45, and the third one is 20. If I try to add these 3 2-digit value in my 2-digit calculator, what is the result I am going to get? I am going to get 115. 115. Is it possible to store this 115 in my calculator display? No, because my calculator is limited with respect to 2-digit. That means it can show only the answer as 15, but the actual answer is 115. Now the question is, without adopting the concept of the saturation logic, then my answer 15 is 100 units away from the correct result, which is, first of all, the answer what we have got is 15. It is incorrect, and that too, that answer 15 is 100 units away from the correct result. So in order to overcome this, or in order to nullify the incorrectness or to minimize the incorrectness in the result, you have to adopt the concept of saturation. With respect to the 2-digit, what is the 2-digit saturation value? We know that the 2-digit saturation value is 99. The minimum value, it starts from 00 to 99. Now the saturated concept of 99 comes into picture. By adopting the concept of saturation logic, the answer is 99, and this 99 is the sum with respect to 115, which is 16 units away from the correct result. Even here also the answer is 99, which is not equal to our actual result, but it is far better compared to the previous case. In previous case, the answer was 100 units away from the correct result. In this case, it is just 16 units away from the correct result. By adopting the concept of saturation logic, we can minimize the error in the computed result. Okay. Next DSP computation block is arithmetic logic unit. Now let us try to understand the arithmetic logic unit with a block diagram. In addition to multiplication, MAC unit and shifters, the DSP should be able to operate certain arithmetic and logical instructions such as AND, OR, NOT, addition, subtraction, etc. Along with the DSP computational building block, here in this ALU, we can see that the common concepts are already we have discussed here is accumulator. Now the concept of ALU, which is comprising of handling both arithmetic instructions as well as logical instructions, multiplexer, here also multiplexer, and the new thing here in this block diagram is two concepts. One is register file, the other one is status flags and register file. Now let us try to understand the need of or the support of status flags and register files in the efficient computation of arithmetic and logical instructions. These are the two things we have to discuss in the concept of ALU. First one is status flags. It is very important to know the status of the accumulator after each and every arithmetic and logical instructions. That means after the computation of any arithmetic or logical instructions, the status has to be determined. If you know the status, then that status will be going to help in case of program sequencing or program scaling. It is very much important to know the status of the accumulator. The status of the accumulator is going to reflect only with respect to arithmetic or logical instructions. That means the status of the accumulator will not be reflected with respect to the data transfer instructions. What happens in case of data transfer instructions? The data is moved from one block to another block. There is no question of data manipulation. So the status of the accumulator will not be changed. Only the data will be moved from one block to another block. The data is going to be manipulated only in case of if you perform any arithmetic or logical operation. Okay. If you perform the arithmetical operation, then there is a chance of seeing carry, overflow. With respect to the logical operations, we can see the zero or sign indication. After the execution of the arithmetic of any arithmetic instruction, if there is carry out of the MSB, then the carry flag is set. If there is no carry out of the MSB, then this carry flag is reset. Set or reset. That means here the flag, the term flag is a 1-bit information. 1-bit information that can take any value 1 or 0. If 1, that is set, that status carry is set. If it is 0, the carry is reset. If you encounter with any overflow condition, then overflow flag will be set. If there is no question of overflow, then overflow flag is reset. If in the result, if you have got the result as 0, then ZF, that is Z0 flag will be set. If the result is not equal to 0 or non-zero, then ZF is equal to 0. If the result is 0, the 0 flag is set. If the sign flag will be set if and only if the MSB in the result is equal to 1 to set. If MSB is not equal to 1, if the MSB is equal to 0, then sign flag will be reset. Like this, we have to monitor the status flags. In order that if you monitor these type of status flags, then that helps in program scaling or program sequencing. Okay. After knowing the concept of the status flags or the need for knowing the status flags, then let us try to understand the concept of register file. The register file is a concept which is going to help or which is going to improve the efficiency of ALU computation. Increases the efficiency of ALU computations. In what way the register files are going to increase the efficiency of the ALU computation? That means while computation, the data will be transferred in and out between the ALU and the memory. ALU and the memory. If you replace this memory, which is not fast enough, by a special kind of memory that is known as registers. A short memory which is fast enough compared to memory which is large but slow. This area will be large, the space is large but slow. But registers are small but fast. Then next question arises, where do you use this type of register files? This type of register files are used in the concept of multiplications. What happens in multiplication? In case of multiplication, there will be two operands, n, n1, n2, and the product what we are going to get, is the outcome of the intermediate results. Intermediate result. If these intermediate results are available in a faster way, then the final result will be available in a faster way. If these intermediate results are available at a very slow rate, then obviously the final result will also be going to displayed in a slower time. So, in order to overcome this, or in order to speed up the multiplication process, the concept of register files is going to help. If we use larger and larger general purpose registers in our computation, then the result will be made available at the accumulator at a faster time. If these registers are not available, then if you use only memory, then instead of registers, then each and every time the data has to move in and out between the ALU. This consumes more amount of time, thus leading to lesser speed. Okay. After knowing the four computational building blocks, now let us try to understand the next concept, that is bus architecture and memory. In this concept, we are going to deal the communication between the memory and the bus. That means in order to access any data which is residing in the memory, we need bus. What is bus? Bus is a group of wires. In that wire, the electrical signals are being transmitted and received from one block to another block. In the conventional microprocessors, we were using the von Neumann bus architecture. What do you mean by von Neumann architecture? The von Neumann architecture says that there is only one common memory for data as well as program memory. Both in one block of memory, the data and program memory are residing with a single set of address and data bus. Now let us draw the architecture of the same. This is the concept of von Neumann architecture. What happens in von Neumann architecture? As I said before, the data memory and program memory are residing in a common memory block, and with only one set of address and data bus. The address bus is unidirectional in nature, whereas the data bus is bidirectional in nature. The communication happens between the processor and the memory. What is the issue with respect to this type of memory? In this case, the data and program memory are sharing the same block. That means if you want to compute any multiplication of n1 into n2, that means the whole instruction, this n1 and n2 is going to reside. This instruction has to be fetched from program memory, whereas n1 and n2 are with respect to data memory. That means first, if you want to fetch the instruction, then the data will be idle. After fetching the instruction from the block of memory, that is program memory, then only we have to proceed to work out with the data. That means here wait states are more number of wait states, one after the other. This slows down the computation. The speed will be less. Then next, in order to overcome this scenario, then the new type of architecture was built. That type of architecture was called as Harvard architecture. What happened in Harvard architecture? In Harvard architecture, a separate data memory and program memory was made available with dedicated address and data bus for each block. Now let us draw the same type of Harvard architecture that is going to be implemented in our DSP processor rather than using the conventional bus architecture, that is von Neumann bus architecture. This is the block diagram of the Harvard architecture. In this Harvard architecture, we have separate block for program memory and separate block for data memory. This is Harvard architecture. Harvard architecture. What is the advantage of this Harvard architecture compared to the von Neumann architecture? Is the advantage is that we can fetch the program, that is instruction and the data simultaneously. If you fetch the program, the instruction and data simultaneously, then what happens? The execution will be faster in nature. The execution happens in a faster way. Then there is no question of waiting for the data only after fetching program, as we have seen in the case of the von Neumann architecture. But even though if you have provided the two separate block of memory, that is one is program and data memory separately, even this also will not going to solve the problem completely. Why? What is the reason for this question? The answer for this question is that we see in case of multiplication, we have to see that there are two types of data. Data, one may be sample data, the other one is coefficient data. In data itself, we have two types of data. First type of data is sampled data. The second type of data is coefficient data. The example for coefficient is filter coefficients. Such type of data and the sampled data. With respect to this, now we are having two types of data. If with this only single data memory, if you follow only one data memory, single data memory, then what happens? Then in this case, the speed will be decreased. In order to enhance the speed, what we are going to do? We have to enhance one more block of the data memory for the case of dual data. One is sample data, the other one is coefficient data. This is address bus and this is data bus. This is dual data memory. Now, what is the effect of incorporating this dual data memory? This dual data memory which affects on one, the speed is increased, the accessing time is reduced. On the other hand, this affects on the size. Size or area on the processor. The amount of area or the size of the area which is in the processor will be increased. That means if you incorporate this type of bus architecture and memory, then the area required for the processor is large. We should have a large enough area. In order to balance the thing between the area and the size, next we have to think about the next concept, that is on-chip memory. The term on-chip memory is going to help the DSP in computation in a faster way. In a faster way, that means that the on-chip memories are faster or speeder compared to the off-chip memories. What is the reason for on-chip memories are faster compared to the off-chip memory? In on-chip memory, we have dedicated address and data bus. Dedicated address and data bus are available. That is not in the case of off-chip memory. In off-chip memory, what happens? The bus pins are been multiplexed. Bus pins are been multiplexed. What is the reason for multiplexing the bus pins in case of off-chip memory? The reason is that in order to minimize the area. For example, if you consider AD0 to AD15, if I write like this, pin number 0 to pin number 15. Out of this 0 to 15, that is total 16 pins. 16 pins. That 16 pins are shared between address and data. Address and data bus. If I want to have the dedicated pins, that means in case of on-chip memory, what happens? There are dedicated address and data bus. That means A0 to A15 and D0 to D15. Then 15 pins for address bus and 15 pins for the data bus. Total we require almost 16 plus 16, 32 pins are required. That means in order to minimize the number of pins in the processor, we are going to multiplex in case of off-chip memories. Thereby off-chip memories are slower in nature, whereas due to the dedicated address and data bus, the on-chip memories are faster enough. Here we have to see the two constraints which has to be met with respect to the DSP computation. In that, the first one is speed and size. The first constraint will be met easily because we know that on-chip memories are speed enough, and these on-chip memories can compute the instruction within a single instruction cycle. This can be managed. But the next constraint is very much important. That is the size. What happens if you provide the dedicated pins or the dedicated address bus and data bus? Then what happens? The size required for the implementation of the on-chip memory will be more. Size on the processor will require more area. This leads to requirement of more area in the processor. But we know that the processor size should be minimum. In the processor, if you give more area to the memory itself, then apart from the memory, the processor is having the capacity to processing of certain arithmetic and logical instructions. Apart from that, the basic computational building blocks, as so many functions will be incorporated in the processor. Out of that, if you give more importance or more area to the size of the memory itself, then the processor size will be more. This requires more area of processor, that leads to the higher cost of fabrication. Okay, that is the disadvantage with respect to the on-chip memory. So in order to overcome this scenario, you have to organize the on-chip memory in such a way that the memory and the data will be handled in such a way that when the repeated instructions, when we have the concept of repeated execution has to be done, then such type of instructions should be categorized in a separate area so that we can access the such type of repeated instructions more frequently. Okay, and if you divide one part of the memory to the program memory and the other part to the data memory, then that gives that consumes lesser area for the memory size. By organizing the on-chip memory in an efficient way, we can minimize the size required or the area required on the processor. In the next class, we can discuss the different data addressing capabilities that we have to see in DSP processor. Thank you.